After looking over several of the different tutorials and videos I found for how to modify a Harbor Freight dust collection system, I decided that my biggest challenge was probably going to be how to pick that motor up without using an assistant to get it mounted on the frame. I could ask my wife to help me, but I don't think she's capable of lifting that motor or holding it for long enough for me to mount it onto a frame. So I just decided to go with horizontal. One of my other objectives was to not spend a lot of money making the modification to the point where it would really just be more practical to save some time and buy one of the existing two-stage dust collection systems. So with this horizontal design here, which is still being figured out, pretty simple. Take a look around the back here. See how it was put together. It's just a couple 4x4s. I got some nice Douglas fir 4x4s because they were straight and clean, looked better than pressure treated. And I just put this spacer in between here. And the spacer was partially based off of the width of this, but it was also based off of the base, the mobile cart. Because I didn't want to have to build a new cart. And we'll go around to that side in a minute. But so I have the 4x4, and then I put two 2x4 spacers on top of that are glued and screwed together. And that's just to shift this out so that when I put my trash can under there, this is a standard, I think it's a Bellin or however you say that, Lowe's 31 gallon, I think, made in USA, good quality steel trash can with my baffle system over there. When I put that on the base, I want the top of the trash can to line up with that port there. So that's all those spacers really do. And you can see so far my investment is one 2x4 and some scrap wood, a couple 2x4 pieces that go on the top there. And one time-saving tip for everybody who's trying to figure out how to connect this piece right here, these two 5-inch parts there. This really got lucky with this. Bought a bunch of different hose fittings or pipe fittings, and all this piece is a coupling for black corrugated exterior, like drainage pipe. Has a couple tabs on the inside for locking into the corrugated hose, but I just took a chisel and just sliced those tabs right off. It took 30 seconds to do, and it fit perfectly around both of these pieces, and it's rigid enough that without any additional supports, I haven't clamped this or anything, it's holding that top in place well enough for me to work with it. On the bottom here, going back to the width of the spacing between the two posts, I wanted it to go in between the bolts for the casters, and that was my real determination there. Didn't want to have to do any complicated cuts, so it's just lined up with the bolts on the motor housing on that side, and it fits in between the two casters there. If you buy one of these, you can measure it. I think it was about 13 3/8 is what mine came out to. As long as it's close, you have a little bit of wiggle room there. So now the next step is to, you can see looking straight on, the bolts from those guys, the thing that that stabilize that, whatever that is, that metal housing around the bag and the filter, those don't line up anymore because horizontally the cart is lower. So I'm probably either just going to put a horizontal piece there with a right angle to go over and stabilize that, and that will really give this whole piece a little extra support. Or other option is to extend something off of the base and horizontally. I think it's really about the same either way. I'm probably going to go horizontal first and then over with a little bit of a spacer in there, a couple washers to separate the 2x4 or whatever from the housing, just enough so that I can slide the bag in there. But really it's about the same. I wanted to keep I measured out exactly how much of a base cart I would need, and it was going to be like 49 or 50 inches, and I wasn't really digging that because once you get the two-stage system built up, the bag that's hanging off there isn't really going to hold that much weight. So you don't need it to sit directly on the cart. Probably going to cut the bag down, and that way I have a smaller cart that's a little bit easier to maneuver around the shop, and I don't have to spend any money on making a new cart. Then quick look at the baffle before I put this together. Still haven't tested any of this, so who knows if it's going to work. But, you know, it's a fun project to play around with. I had some MDF sitting around, so I used that, and then I just sealed it with some polyurethane. I just put a single coat on there. I'll probably paint it later, but for now, just some polyurethane. I had some pieces of ash that are still slightly green. I screwed those on. Ash is hard enough and stable enough. I think it's going to hold with the screws in there. And then the middle pipe. This is just some aluminum flashing left over from some previous work on the house. I just let's see what we got here. I just put some rivets in that. I slid it into, hang on, backing up. All right, to measure that piece, I just slid it inside this 5-inch fitting that came with the dust collection system on the inside there, and used that handy dandy hole to drill through so that I knew where to put my rivets. So this would fit perfectly on there, and that helped me line everything up. And I sealed it with some household goop adhesive, you know, whatever I had around that worked for the job. And another modification I made on this, or an improvement I think over a lot of the models that I've seen, is it always seems to be a little bit tricky how you're going to get that hose on there so that you can slide the trash can out without having to pick up that rigid hose that comes with the system and try to push that off of a fitting that you have on there. I'd rather just slide it horizontally. So I made 2 of these identical pieces, just some Baltic birch because I had that around. Got the fitting on that side, and I cut out an identical piece here and put a little fitting on the inside of that, crimped it so it fit on the hose. But now on the inside I have 4 T-nuts that I put on the bottom of that piece of plywood. And then when I slide the cart in, or slide the trash can in, I'm not going to have to pick anything up. I'll just take off a couple bolts with maybe a head that I have on here, and that way I can slide the cart straight out, slide it back in, and then tighten down the bolts, and I'll have a good enough seal so if any small amounts of air get sucked in there, it's just going to be sucking in a little bit of air from the outside. At that point, the dust has already dropped down inside the can, so I'm really not too worried about the minor amount of air that I might lose through there. And that's where I'm at right now, so we'll see. If I have a little more time this weekend, I'll finish putting this thing together and see if it works.